Everything we do runs on invisible connections. Our entire world is powered by them. But have you ever stopped to think, how secure are they, really? Well, that's what this explainer is all about. We're going to trace the incredible story of mobile network security, from its, let's say, shaky beginnings, all the way to what's coming next. So yeah, how do we secure a world that runs on mobile networks? It's a huge question, right? Because pretty much our entire lives are built on top of them. So today, let's do just that. We're going to trace the whole journey, from the Wild West of the early days to what the future holds. I mean, just think about it for a second. Mobile networks started out as a cool way to make a phone call without being tied to a wall. Now, they're the literal backbone for global finance, for life-saving healthcare, even for the future of AI. The stakes have gotten so much higher. So let's rewind. How did we get to this point? Okay, so our story kicks off back in the 90s. This is when we get the first big digital mobile standard, GSM. You probably noticed 2G. This was it. This was the blueprint for pretty much everything that followed. Right, the vulnerable blueprints. And that's a good name for it because while GSM was totally revolutionary, it was built with some pretty major holes in it. Let's dig in. So back then, the security goals were pretty simple, really. First, use that little SIM card to prove you are who you say you are. That's authentication. And second, encrypt the signal between your phone and the tower so no one could just listen in on your call. Seems straightforward enough, right? Now, not so fast. There was this huge, glaring flaw. See, your phone had to prove its identity to the network, but the network never had to prove its identity back to your phone. It was a one-way street. So what does that mean? It means an attacker could set up a fake cell tower, what we call an IMSI catcher, and your phone would just connect to it, no questions asked. And just like that, they could listen to your calls, track your location, you name it. On top of that, the encryption was, well, it was pretty weak and easy to break. The whole system was basically an open invitation for eavesdropping. And so began this constant game of cat and mouse. The engineers for the next generation had a really clear mission: fix those massive flaws from the 2G blueprint. And that brings us to 3G and 4G, and a whole new chapter in mobile security. The big fix? It's called mutual authentication. For the very first time, it wasn't a one-way street anymore. Your phone could now actually check and verify that it was talking to a real cell tower, not a fake one. That one change was a game changer. 3G also rolled out way stronger encryption and something called integrity protection. Basically, it slammed the doors shut on those fake tower attacks. But there's always a but, right? Attackers are clever. They figured out they could still trick your phone into downgrading its connection. So even if you had a 3G phone, they could force it to connect using the old, super vulnerable 2G security. It's like you've installed this amazing, high-tech lock on your front door, but the bad guy just tricks you into leaving the flimsy back door wide open. It completely bypassed all the new shiny security of 3G. This is where 4G LT comes in and really changes the game. We see this massive leap in sophistication. Instead of just patching old problems, the designers built security in from the ground up with something called a key ladder. Okay, so imagine you have this one master key on your SIM card, but that key doesn't actually unlock any doors itself. Instead, its only job is to create a whole bunch of other keys. And each of those keys has a very specific, very limited job. You get one key just for handling the control signals, another key just for your data, another for your voice calls. Why is this so smart? Because if an attacker somehow gets one of those smaller keys, the rest of the system is still totally locked down. It was a huge win for security. And this really gets to the heart of it. With 4G, security wasn't just another feature you could check off a list. It wasn't an afterthought. It was baked right into the core architecture from the very beginning. And carrying that architectural mindset forward brings us to today, to 5G. And here, the focus gets even bigger. It's not just about securing the network anymore. It's about securing you, your privacy. Okay, this is one of the biggest and most important upgrades in 5G. And it's all about protecting your identity. See, with 4G and earlier, your phone's permanent ID, the thing that uniquely identifies you, could be sent out in the clear before the secure connection was even set up. 5G totally fixes this. Now, it basically puts your ID into a sealed encrypted envelope before it ever sends it. The result? It's way harder for anyone to snoop on the airwaves and track your device. And 5G comes with a whole new bag of tricks. A big one is something called network slicing. This lets a carrier take one physical network and slice it up into multiple, totally separate virtual networks. So you could have one super secure, high-priority slice just for things like ambulances and emergency services, and it's completely isolated from another slice that's just for, streaming movies or gaming. It's an incredibly powerful tool for custom tailoring security. And if there's one thing to remember about 5G, it's this. For the first time, privacy wasn't just a nice-to-have feature added on later. It was a core design goal from the absolute beginning. That is a massive philosophical shift.
But of course, technology never ever stands still. So what's next? What does the security frontier look like for 6G and beyond? Let's take a peek into the future.
So the whole vision for 6G security is about getting ready for threats that might not even fully exist yet. We're talking about things like AI-powered defenses that can spot and stop attacks instantly. We're talking about post-quantum cryptography, which is a fancy way of saying we need to build encryption that even a powerful quantum computer can't break. But at the very core of all of this thinking is a concept called zero trust.
So what exactly is zero trust? The best way to think about it is this. Old school security was kind of like a castle with a big wall and a moat. If you got past the front gate, you were considered trusted and could pretty much go anywhere inside. Zero trust completely flips that idea on its head. It assumes nothing is trusted by default. It's more like a modern spy agency headquarters where you need to prove your identity and authorization to get into every single room, every single time you enter. Trust isn't a one-time thing. It has to be constantly verified, over and over again.
Okay, so we've gone on a pretty wild ride here, all the way from the early days of 2G to the futuristic vision of 6G. We've gotten pretty technical, but let's pull back for a second and talk about why this whole journey actually matters so much. If you look at this table, you can really see the whole story in one place. It's all about authentication. We started with that totally broken one-way system in 2G. Then we fixed it with mutual authentication in 3G. We made it more robust with that clever key ladder in 4G. We protected your privacy by encrypting your identity in 5G, and now we're looking ahead to a future of constant zero-trust verification. Every single generation is a lesson learned from the one before it. And why do we have to get this right? Because these networks are no longer just for making calls or watching cat videos. This is critical infrastructure now. We're talking about the global banking system. We're talking about 911 and emergency responders, military comms, the entire Internet of Things, autonomous cars. Our entire modern society is built on the assumption that this stuff works, and works securely. So the bottom line is brutally simple. A security failure these days isn't just a dropped call. It's not an inconvenience anymore. It's a genuine, systemic risk to our economy, to public safety, to our entire way of life. Look, the technology will always be evolving. There will always be a new threat and a new defense. That's a given. The real question this whole journey leaves me with is, will we, the people building and using this tech, keep evolving our foresight and our sense of responsibility right along with it?